So we're doing abundance today, and I can't, and Jack and Julian can't, get out of our mind the very first time a colleague of mine, Sharon Dunn, she's a minister, CSL minister in Sacramento, but at the time she was at Oakland Center, and she gave a talk on abundance, and she said, abundance. And so that's all that Jack and Julian and I always do all the time, it's abundance. So we're talking abundance today. Okay. I know. It was going to kick the... It's just so fun. So I have a friend, or she's now transitioned to the other side, but she actually was a practitioner at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. And she had a life that was different than mine. She grew up in poverty. She's black, so in a poor community in Texas. But she worked hard. She's very smart. Ended up going to Yale undergrad, Georgetown Law School. By the time I met her, she was a social justice, had her own private practice as a social justice lawyer, and was a practitioner. And one of the things that she didn't say it to me, she was saying it to everybody in general, but she said it with so much intensity that I couldn't help but pay attention. Why would anyone do anything without putting abundance in everything? Like, why would you have a vision statement that didn't include abundance? Because she had to work so hard on that in her life, and she never stopped. She said, that's not something you just do once. It is something you continually call forth. Oh, yeah, Cher's nodding. Our abundance queen over here. It's something you do over and over and over because our whole world is about scarcity and limitation and not enoughness. So abundance is something we want to continue to cultivate within our consciousness and add it to pretty much everything. I heard her, and I recognized at that moment I didn't have a huge soul resonance with the idea of abundance. I did with infinite, because I'm a student of Joel Goldsmith. So if you notice, I sign off on a lot of my emails in infinite love and intelligence, or love and grace, or whatever it is, because I love the idea of the infinite way, that there's unlimited, unbounded, that spiritually we are infinite. Humanly we have limitations, spiritually we are infinite, and so our job is to shift more of our identity to our infinite nature that is boundless and includes all life, rather than form. And he was also really big on, he wrote a book called Infinite Supply, and not really simply focusing it on money, but in everything. That's why he called it infinite supply. Don't limit it. It could come in any, your infinite good can come in any way. So I've always been infinite, but it's only recently that I'm really going, hearing, it's like she's on the other side of the veil, still at me about this abundance. And I'm more and more saying, you know what? That's actually a really important quality that I need to start embodying more and more, or bringing into visioning and abundance of anything. And the reason why is because what I recognize when I say infinite love intelligence, what I recognize is most people just read right over that. For most people, infinite doesn't really have a solid landing place. It's kind of an abstract concept. Even the symbol of infinite is a sideways 8. It's not something that necessarily inspires emotion or passion. It's just kind of like this concept that if you spend a lot of time reading Joel Goldsmith, you can get excited about. But in general, infinite doesn't really capture it. When I think of abundance, I can't help it. I always think of this harvest time. The gourds. When I was a child, I had a friend my best friend, she was Jewish, and her father would build a sukkot. They're kind of like outdoor tents. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? I should have taken more time to read how to describe it. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a tent, and it's got all the harvest gourds and pumpkins, and it's really colorful, and it's like a gazebo, and you sit under. So he would build one, and we just finished, and it's part of the Jewish indigenous tradition, and so they just finished October 6th. And I would go and I would sit underneath it. I love sitting there. It just felt so good. And so when I think of abundance, those are the first images that come to my mind every time. Sort of harvest festival. We have our harvest fest coming up. November 11th, rich, abundance. It has a feeling tone to it. It is informed. When we think of abundance, we're not necessarily thinking abstract principle. We're thinking right here in life. When we think of abundance, it's an overflow of what is needed. So we have what we need, survival, and then there's thriving. Abundance is thriving. And so the intention is we should all be thriving. So the principle, here's the principle. Spirit has no limit. Therefore, it is everything. And as it is everything, it is not just surviving. It's not just when Spirit made sand, it didn't make 3 grains of sand. It made billions of grains of sand, billions of galaxies of stars. Everything Spirit does is in these vast numbers because it is unlimited, and it's not hard. It's no harder to create billions and billions of something than a singular something. Billions of cells and atoms and molecules, everything is just filled to overflowing with this abundance because that is Spirit's nature. It is infinite, it's unlimited. So when we identify with that, we start moving away from scarcity and limitation. And the reason why I think this is so important to understand on Earth is because I'm understanding more and more how much suffering is caused by lack of anything. That when we feel, in fact, I took a class years ago, this was back in the 90s, and she would say we all have our own limiting false belief that is particular to each of us as individuals. So the class was about finding what that limiting false belief was. And she said, but the universal false belief that pervades our earth, I can't say the cosmos because I don't know, but for our earth, is not enough. Whether it's not enough money, not enough power, not enough education, not enough fame, not enough being seen, not enough whatever. Not enough. And after she said that, that's what I hear when people are talking so much, including me. It's not enough. We don't have enough. And so much suffering is caused from this not enoughness. And so the more we start healing our own places of scarcity, and it can be in anything. We don't want to be even limited on how we understand abundance. It is money, it is supply, but it is everything. I don't have enough compassion. I don't have enough joy. I don't have enough harmony. Or maybe not just me, because that's limitation, because I am everything. My community, my nation, this world doesn't have enough compassion. We don't have enough intelligence. We don't have enough joy. We don't have enough generosity. So can you see? Are you getting how important this quality is? That even if I know love, but I only know love just for me or just for the people around me, that's scarcity. When I talk about abundant love, infinite love, I am now including everybody. And the suffering begins to dissolve. Okay, so conceptually, this is easy to get. I'm going to give you a very tangible example. It kind of makes me laugh. So we have this wonderful space here. We are a beautiful, creative community. Everyone here has your homes, how you decorate it. And then we come in here and we have very strong ideas about the right way to make this place look. And it's not that other places people are wrong necessarily, but my way's the right way. It's kind of funny. So, and the things that we care about are different. So one of the things, I was talking with someone, like dry flowers. That is something I'm completely neutral on. I don't have an opinion on one way or the other. Some people feel very strongly about it. I'm not one of those people. However, we had a painting donated to us, this is years ago. It was a beautiful painting. But I did not want it on our walls. I was passionate about that. That I was not neutral about. And so I'm like, no, we are not doing that. I was not abundant in my generous of heart in that moment. I have to own it. I'm here owning it. Because people say, well, it's not really that bad, Harriet, and it might, be nice to have something on our walls. And it's, you could look at it from a different perspective. But I was unwilling. I was like, no, I know that's wrong, and it doesn't fit with the vision that I have, me, Harriet, have for this place. So no, I was like unwavering. That is not an abundance consciousness. Do you see what I'm saying? Ultimately, we have to make a decision, so we can't be abundant where we can do everyone's perspective. But an abundance consciousness means that I'm willing to hear and listen with my heart, not just with like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to listen. But I mean, really listen. Really say, you know what? I might not have the answer to this. There might people have different perspectives that I need to actually let into my heart. I didn't want to let it into my heart because I wanted to be right. It just makes me laugh. I wanted to be right about this, so I do not want to take in what they were saying, no matter how valuable or interesting it was. And so we have this whole space. We have to make decisions, and people have their opinions. And so we can either just motor ahead. Dictatorships are so much more efficient because you don't have to listen to anyone, you just motor ahead, but then you have people who are upset. Turns out in the long run, it's not all that efficient. So the reason why I'm using this as an example, because it's such a mundane thing. We talk about abundance, we talk about it, but to actually live it, to live with other people and hear what they have to say and not say, well, because they think of something different than I do, that they're less than. They can be kind of right, but I know I'm better. That's a really hard, and yet at the same time, not all perspectives are the same or all equal, but we need to listen first to understand it. Everybody needs to have a voice. It takes much longer, it's much more tedious, but in the long run, if there's this, what we call community buy-in, if there's an ownership, then we all feel, yes, a connection. So to be abundant, maybe that's why nature takes so long. It takes time to develop and to grow and to nurture. And it's even in the most mundane things, like what do we release from the closets? Just little mundane decisions. Abundance impacts every part of our life, our relationships, our job, how we operate in the world, how we operate with our money and our finances, how we operate with our body, with our emotions. Are we abundantly compassionate with our emotions, with our thoughts? Are we abundant in allowing different thoughts in our head? This is the growth. This is the constant growth that we are on. And I'm really now fully aligned with what my friend Sheila was saying, was that this has to be a way of being all the time. We are constantly having to let go of our scarcity and our limitation and opening to the infinite. I was listening to Joe Dispenza. He had a little clip on abundance, and he said it's all about identity. Actually, it was Deepak Chopra. If your identity is with form and relativity, you're going to move more towards scarcity, and the more you move towards spiritual identity, the more you're going to move to an abundant identity. So it's an actual spiritual practice to identify with your spiritual self. It doesn't mean to dismiss your human perspectives, but you be abundantly compassionate and interested and care about your own perspectives as well, not just other people, but your own. And you can advocate for your perspective. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't mean shutting out someone else's perspective. All right. Are you with me with this? You got it? All right. Because now we're getting into the things that it's been a hard week. I'm going to talk about the Middle East, and I hope you can walk with me in this. We know that last week Hamas had a horrible attack on the Israelis. Now, just to give context for myself, I think I should be. Many of you know this already, but I just want to set the context for my own personal perspective. So the first 7 years of my life, I grew up in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, in a neighborhood, small block with 60 kids. But I had one friend. She was my best friend. I lived at her house. She lived at my house. We were back and forth, and she was Jewish. She's the one whose sukkah I used to love to hang under. I went to a Jewish Montessori school for 3 years. I learned Hebrew. We celebrated Shabbat every Friday. We celebrated the Jewish holidays. I moved in school community. My closest friend for the first several years at that school was Jewish. My school, we took the whole school system until I graduated from high school. You got off for all the high holy days, for the Jewish holidays. We sang Christian and Jewish songs every year at the season. It was just a part of my life. Went to middle school, my friend was Jewish. Moved to Maryland for 2 years, made a good Jewish friend. Went back to Shaker, my best friend there for the next 3 years was Jewish. My first boyfriend, who I was with for 4 years and almost married, was Jewish. Went to college. Most of my roommates over those next years were Jewish. My first husband was half Jewish. It has been so much a part of my life since I was born. So when I heard about the attacks, but I was with my son. By the way, that was awesome. I don't do social media when I'm gone. When I take time off, I try to do non-technology. So I just said, I'll just deal with it when I get back. When I got back, I opened up Facebook. I wanted to hear the horror. I wanted to hear what people were saying. I wanted to hear it all. I opened up. Now, we all know, for those of you, some of you are off Facebook, but for those of you who are on Facebook, they have the algorithm, so you only see certain posts. So I can't say this was everybody, but when I turned it on my feed, nothing. And I'm like, wait, what? That horrible attack just happened and I'm not hearing anything? And so I'm like, wait, what's going on? So I'm looking around, went to my high school friends, started looking them up. I have a friend from high school who lives in Israel. I have a college roommate who also lives in Israel. And checking out, and at first they're not saying much either. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, this horrible thing happened. Why aren't people talking about it? And so I private messaged one of my friend who's in Israel, and I said, where's the horror? What's happening? And so she wrote what her experience was in Israel, and it was a raw. She said, this is Israel is 0.03% of all the land in the Middle East. It's a very small place. Everybody knows everybody. She says, everybody knows someone who was kidnapped or murdered. I'm not analyzing anything. I'm in pain. And my friends are in pain, and we're trying to help the people and the children who have been horrified. We're trying to create some semblance of normalcy. It's coming out. She wrote a beautiful essay. I shared it on the minister's list. And then in response, someone posted something, and they said, well, here's a balanced perspective of what's happening. Okay, I'm just being sort of what my experience is. This is not about taking sides, it's about understanding. She sent an article that said, and introduced it that this is a balanced perspective of what's happening in the Middle East. And it was a very pro-Palestinian perspective. And what I recognize is that for many people who identify as liberal, left liberal, is there like a radio on or something? You're gonna talk. Anyway, leftist liberal tend to be pro-Palestinian because they have felt victimized by the Israeli government. Totally understand it. Get it. Here's the challenge. Just like we had a president that I did not align with, if people said, that's who I am, I'd be like, no, that's not who I am. All my friends were against the Israeli government. They don't like their policies. They are absolutely for equal rights. But they are just sort of getting thrown in, like, if you're Jewish or you're Israeli, I'm going to tell you, and I wrote back to the person who sent the balanced article, and I said, my concern is not what was being said here, but that you show no compassion for my friend who's in Israel, and that you can only seem to feel compassion for people who agree with you and not actually feel the pain of what's happening to everybody, to all the innocent people. There are innocent people on both sides, and our hearts have to be big enough to hold all of it. So my friends who are Jewish, my friends, I'm not talking about part of the Israeli government, they are almost consistently liberal. They are consistently for all marginalized people. They are very active and vocal in supporting people who are marginalized, and yet when they felt their people were attacked, where was all the compassion? Silence. Silence. People were afraid, and I can get it, because I didn't post anything either, because I started looking at people's posts, and vicious attacks would happen. If you took any perspective of compassion, it didn't matter. That means you were being anti-somebody else. And so there was people, everyone's afraid to say anything, including my friends who were Jewish. They didn't say anything either. They didn't want to be attacked. So everyone just sort of shut down. This is not an abundant consciousness. This is a consciousness of survival, of fear, of limitation. I can only care about so many people and not other people, versus an abundance of consciousness, an abundance of compassion for all people, to be able to hear the pain of all people. A colleague posted a beautiful article, and they called it selective empathy. I will be empathetic for the people with whom I agree, and I do not have empathy for the people who I see as contrary to what I believe, even though my friends are actually in agreement. They don't want any violence or hurt to happen to Palestinians at all. At all. And yet, there was no compassion expressed for them. Breaks my heart. We have healing work to do. If any of you were raised, and I would say most of us were, not all of us, were raised in a Judeo-Christian or Muslim upbringing, it's part of us. It's not them. If you've spent any time reading a Bible, you've read about Jewish history. They're part of us. They're part of the Christian history. They're part of the Muslim history. It's all intertwined. There has been so much work these last years on trauma healing, and it's generational healing. That's what they're discovering. Trauma is actually passed down through the DNA. People are getting triggered and re-triggered, and the violence is creating trauma and re-traumatizing. We have to start to have abundance of pain, of compassion for all beings, not just our generations, but our previous generations. And hear and understand the conflict, because pain is not rational. So I heard some people say, well, why don't they just, I'm not supporting violence at all, but one of the goals is to understand. So when someone said, well, I would just be quiet, I would just meditate. If I was in Israel right now, I wouldn't say anything, I would just meditate. And I say, well, this is not anyone's perspective, I did not hear anyone say this, it was just me trying to understand a perspective. And I said, well, I'm thinking if I'm a Jewish person and I have the DNA of the Holocaust in me, and 6 million of my ancestors died being peaceful. They walked right into their death. They did not resist. The number one criticism that I heard growing up towards Jewish people is, why didn't you fight? Why did you let them do that to you? So when people say, well, just be peaceful, just respond, that's easy for me to say. No one's attacked me. No one's killed, at least humanly, my family's generations, but 6 million of their ancestors were slaughtered, and they were peaceful through the whole thing. So you see, it gets complicated. If you're here, it's because we are being asked to spiritually mature. And mature requires complexity and depth and the willingness to embrace all of it, to let our hearts sit in the pain of it and listen. I've talked about before, and because it's so important, I'm getting more and more the importance. January 2005, I had a vision that I had to learn integral. And I was outside the planet, and I was told in uncertain terms, and literally, it showed the whole world, ignore all of it, just learn integral. It was so insistent. So I did. I spent the next 5 years really learning integral. Integral is on the face fairly easily, but when you actually start applying to it, it's very complex, and it has many parts to it. And then I thought, well, it seemed very intellectual, and I couldn't quite figure out how, but over the years, I've recognized the importance of it. So let me give you one of the most important principles of integral. Now, this was Spirit telling me. So Spirit is saying this is an important thing to learn. So Ken Wilber, who's one of the main articulators of integral theory, his view of what it means to be spiritual is, since spiritual is infinite, there is partial truth to every perspective. There's no perspective that is irrelevant. No perspective is all right, but no perspective is all wrong. So from an integral point of view, our job is to listen to different perspectives, not to find the truth, the only truth, but to see a part of the truth. So that's what integralists do. They listen to different perspectives, not saying that's the right perspective or that's the right, but allowing for the multiple perspectives because Spirit is infinite. And if we are infinite beings, that is our growth, to be able to expand into hearing and understanding other people's perspectives. Does that make sense? So even as we don't want to just be selective in our empathy. We want to be abundant in our empathy. We want to be abundant in our ability to hear perspectives. And so what happened is this article came out and someone else posted a podcast, and there was just a lot of stuff. And I'm going to tell you, there was a little undercurrent. No one says it overtly, but what it started to feel is like it's kind of like Israel kind of deserved it. I mean, because there was no compassion expressed with it. I did talk to them individually, but what I did when I heard that, I thought everything it said, it was saying this is the truth, this is a balanced perspective, and something, it was like, this is off. So what I heard, I like Jesse Itzler, he's Jewish, he pointed to a woman who grew up, she was Jewish in Iran. She said, we did every day chants, death to America, that's how I was raised. But she now lives in the United States, and she had a conversation on Instagram with someone who's in Israel. Both of them would identify as being liberal, not supporters of the government, but they were talking about what it was like to be Jewish now. And interested, so in that conversation, they addressed every point that was put in the article, and it gave me a whole nother perspective. I'm like, oh, didn't mean that they're all right or the article was all right. I'm just saying they both had really interesting things to say, and it expanded me, expanded my heart, and it expanded my mind. We got to do both. We got to expand our minds and our heart and our bodies to be able to embrace it all. It takes time. It takes time to listen to the different perspectives and integrate them in our heart and our soul. This is spiritual maturity. This is why I always be guided. If you're here today, if you're listening to this, there's something in you that's calling you towards this spiritual maturity, towards this integration of hearing perspectives. And it doesn't mean you don't have preferences. It doesn't mean you don't lean more to one. I'm not telling anybody what to think. But I am telling us, inviting us to listen with an abundant mind, with an abundant heart, with an abundant soul. To listen with a heart and say, how much can I contain? Because every time we shut someone out, we're causing pain. Last night, I was in meditations, how to be with all this. Been having some sharing a little bit on the minister's listserv. And it constantly gets you back to your heart because your mind can't resolve something like this. And I just feel so sad. I just feel so sad. So I was just sitting in meditation last night, and it came to me, I need to write something to my classmates that I grew up with. So I got on Facebook, we have a class page. Nothing had been written to anybody. So I just wrote. I said, I walk to my classmates who are Jewish. I walk with you. I love you. I walk with you in your pain, and I walk with you in the healing. We're in this together. I only know of one classmate who is Arab. There might be more, but I will say I was unaware of it if there are. But I said for all of those who are impacted because of your connections with Palestinians and Arabs, my heart is with you. I walk with you. I walk with your pain, and I walk with you in love, and I walk with you in healing. We are here to walk with each other in this healing process and not separate from each other. We are here to heal the separation that is tearing hearts and souls and families and children apart. And these have lasting memories. We all know the effect of trauma. We are here to do the work together. And I got some loving responses from my some of my classmates. But here's what was interesting to me. A lot of people haven't commented. I would say most people in my class haven't commented. I'm trying to figure it out. That's what I'm spending this next week, and I'm trying to understand, because I still do not understand what's happening, why there's so little compassion being expressed. When George Floyd was murdered, my high school page was, people were processing and in pain and sharing and talking about all of it, and nothing about this. Even my post only had, 7 or 8 responses. What is going on? I don't understand it. I still don't understand it. But I guarantee you one thing. I'm going to continue to learn. I'm going to continue to stand and work on opening my heart over and over. Of course, I don't want anyone, I think everyone here, does anyone want anyone to hurt? Does anyone want some people to be better than other people? No, I know that about us. I know that about this, and I know that about my friends at home. I know that. I know that we want the best for all people, so we have to do the work because they're part of me. They're part of my soul. And if you have Jewish friends, they are hurting. I didn't even know this until I started listening to some people just 2 days ago. She was talking about all her Jewish friends contacting each other. Could their children even go to school because they're dealing with a lot of anti-Semitism in colleges? Are they safe? They're keeping in constant contact. Can they go to the synagogue because Hamas has called for people to attack Jewish people? And I don't want to take sides, but I certainly don't want people to live in fear. That's not okay. So one of the things I can do is hear. I can listen. I don't know about what I can do about the massing, but one thing I can do is I can listen. I can hear what you're saying and not block out anyone from any perspective. I am here, no matter what your perspective, I'm here to listen. This is how we are here to grow, and that is our role here. And that's the role I'm inviting us all, is to this week look at everything that's happening in your life, your work life, your relationship life, your groceries, your finances, what's happening in the United States, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, what's happening all over the world. Whatever it is your attention goes on, I just invite you to remember there's infinite abundance right here. There's unlimited love. There's unlimited compassion. There's unlimited understanding. There's unlimited possibilities. There's unlimited resolutions that I can't even see right now. There's unlimited empathy. I have unlimited heart space to hold all of it. I have an unlimited ability to hear multiple perspectives and not have to choose a side. Or even if I do choose a side, I can still hear the other. My mind is abundant enough that I can hold another side too. I can hold all of it. Approach your entire life this week with the quality of abundance where there is no limit, to really know yourself as a spiritual being first and foremost. That is who you are. That's your true identity. That's your real identity. And live that as much as you possibly can in overflow of abundance, in this richness of abundance, in this richness of infinity. Would you be willing to practice that? Yeah, let's do it. Let's just see what happens, because this world needs our love, doesn't it? It needs our love. It needs this abundant love. So let's just pray. And by the way, with yourself, don't ever forget the abundance of love and compassion for yourself. And if it's too much, be abundantly compassionate and pull away. Take care of yourself. It's a lot. It's a lot. Sometimes silence just feels like the only answer. There's really nothing to be said. So much is being said, and with anger and pain. And so we just stand in the absolute. It is so important that we remember every single day throughout the day that our true nature and the true nature of this entire world of form is spirit. It is unchanging, and it is absolute unconditional love all of the time. It doesn't come, it doesn't go, it never gets less than. It is always fully and completely infinite oceanic love, abundant love. It is abundant peace. It is abundant harmony. It is abundant empathy. It is abundant wisdom. It is abundant compassion. It is abundant of material good, of emotional connection, emotional healing. It is abundance of resources. It's abundance of possibilities. It is abundance. And we are swimming in that isness. It doesn't come, it doesn't go, it is, and it is right now. And so when we go into the silence, we are going into the isness of it's all already done. All is already done. The peace is already here in abundance. It is a dynamic and alive peace. It is a joyful peace. It is a free peace. That is who we are now. It is a love that has no beginning and no ending. That is who we are now. It is the isness of who and what we are. So we just stand in this consciousness here and now. Just take a moment and just be that. And as we stand in this consciousness of oneness, we recognize that it is who and what we are, that we stand in the consciousness of our own being's oneness, that we look at any part of ourselves that we may cut off, that we don't even want to listen to. We open our heart and say, I have an abundance of love for all aspects of my being. For those parts of me that are really hurting and in pain, I have the abundance of consciousness to be with it. That part of me that is passionate and cares and have preferences and opinions, I love that part of me. We love all aspects of the meanness that we are. All that makes us who we are, our perspectives, our thoughts, our creativity, it's all wonderful. And we have that abundance of heart that as we know this and accept all of who we are in every moment without judgment, we can be with the abundance that surrounds and unfolds us. We can be with people who have different perspectives and be it in an abundance of love, an abundance of harmony. We are fearless. We're not going to lose anything ever by being abundant. We are never going to lose anything when we are abundance in love, an abundance of peace, an abundance of understanding, abundance of wisdom. That is our true nature. That is the beginning, the alpha and the omega and everything in between. And so we live and move and have our being in every area of our life with this abundance consciousness for ourselves, for our family, for our friends, for our communities, for our nation, for our world. And we know that there is challenges and within all of it, but we know that we know who and what we really are. We call forth this consciousness, the power of this consciousness of abundance. We call forth the healing energy of this abundance consciousness. We call forth the creative intelligence of this abundance consciousness. We call it all forth in this extraordinary, unlimited, abundant consciousness. And we know this is where all healing happens. And it is here and now happening inside of our very state of being in this moment. And as we are healing ourselves from limitation, separation, not enoughness, ignorance, as we heal ourselves, we are healing the planet. For it is absolute truth that there truly is only one. And we are it now. In deep abiding gratitude, we just say thank you for this consciousness and for this awareness and for its livingness now and throughout this entire week. We are changing the world into greater and greater harmony, love, and joy in form as it is in heaven. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Spirit. It is done, and we let it be, and so it is.